Welcome to episode 14 of the Courageous Coach podcast, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on what it really takes to be courageous with your clients, your business, and your life. I'm your host, Melissa Hague, and in this episode, I'm joined by Febronia Ruocco. We chat about Feb's journey into coaching, the integration of insights and coaching, and the evolution of her practice. We explore the challenges and joys of coaching, the importance of silence, and the courage it takes to support high-performing leaders. Feb shares her experiences and insights on managing moments in coaching, emphasizing the significance of self-regulation and the partnership between coach and client. So, are you ready? Let's dive in. Welcome to the Courageous Coach podcast. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you here. And today I am joined by Febronia Ruocco. I'm delighted that you're here. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. And this conversation, we were just saying it's a conversation, right? And we're going to talk about all things coaching, all things courageous coaching. But what I would like to start with, Feb, if it's okay, is to just tell us a little bit about you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me, Melissa. It's lovely to be having this conversation with you today, especially as we're both Henley peers as well.
Yeah.
And what was your question? What does courageous coaching mean to me? Was that your first question?
No, just tell us about yourself, first of all.
Okay, sorry, I misheard you there. So my name's Febronia. I'm a Global Insights and Analytics Director. I've worked in the marketing and insights sectors for the last 20 plus years. And 2.5 years ago, I started the journey to become an executive leadership coach, and I'm now fully certified and accredited by the EMCC and the ICF.
Brilliant. And so, I mean, you mentioned Henley there, Feb, and I'm so. First of all, let me ask you, what drew you to coaching 2.5 years ago? What did you wake up one morning and say, executive leadership coach? You know, what drew you to it?
It was a slow burn. I think in the insights roles that I've done for the big multi-corporates on big brands over the years, I've always had a part in mentoring and coaching team members because we're working with technical skills, market research skills, project management skills, and so on. So it's always been there in the background. And then I think just a little bit before I joined Henley, I started mentoring for Durham University and Lancaster University. And it just all started to come together, and it coincided with me seeing a post from a peer from Unilever at the time, who was doing the course at Henley, and I thought, wow, that sounds right up my street. So I contacted them, and they sent me all the information, and there you have it. And that was the beginning of the journey. So it was kind of a slow evolution, always heading in that direction.
Yeah, but not necessarily knowing that you were heading in that direction, maybe to begin with.
Yeah, and not knowing that I would develop this new career path and a bit more of a portfolio career, but that it would also complement my insights leadership. So I didn't realize that the two bits slot quite beautifully together, the yin and yang, really, of coaching and insights.
Okay. I'm fascinated by that. Tell me more about that yin and yang.
Well, in insights, we normally support senior marketeers and other senior leaders from different departments in the business with informing them of different customer behaviors and opportunities that we identify in the data. And there's a lot of influencing, and there's a lot of stakeholder management and partnership, because you have to convince them that what you're promoting or what you're seeing in the data has potential for commercial opportunity. So you're kind of coaching a little bit in that style as well. So there's that aspect. And then in coaching, you partner your thinker or your client, however you wish to call them. And the coaching is only as good as that relationship develops and that partnership and trust. So it's very much yin and yang. So there's always that leadership focus, and also that supporting, partnering, and, helping to get a good outcome.
Yeah. That I'm sort of making that link. One of the things that I often talk about in kind of early coach development is that, telling people what to do,
Mm.
rather than helping them to work it out themselves is never as effective, right? Particularly in terms of long-term behavior change. So
Mm.
in terms of your insights work, right, it's not about telling them what to
No,
do with the data, right?
it's also guiding them, explaining the data, how you've collected it, but then helping them see how it's meeting or mitigating against their objectives. So you're helping them have an aha moment. You're not being condescending or patronizing and say, sometimes you might have to say, but this is what the data is really saying. But you're guiding them on a data storytelling journey.
Mm, mm. Sounds like a good training ground for a coach, right? Yeah, brilliant,
And
brilliant.
also, you see leadership at its best because some of the senior leaders that I've worked with from these big corporations on big brands, they're big roles that they have,
Mm,
big serious decisions about millions of pounds of investment. So you see leadership and all the challenges that it brings. So when they come up in coaching, there's a sympathy and an empathy because you have real understanding of the environmental pressures,
mm,
economic environments, and challenges that they're facing. So yeah, it helps on many different levels.
definitely, definitely. And so, you mentioned about Henley, and so I'm wondering because that was you said the kind of the beginning of the journey
Mm.
into coaching for you. So we obviously got some shared experiences of Henley, and I'm wondering what was that experience like for you, kind of coming from into that kind of, you come from that corporate world with with a good job title, and this is what I do, and
Rah, rah, rah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then into Henley's coaching program. So what was that experience like for you?
Well, first of all, I'm a lifetime learner. I love study, learning, reading. So it ticked that box. I was hungry for that learning experience, and it was at a good stage in my life. So that was fantastic. Going in as a marketeer and learning to be a coach at the beginning, that was a revelation because marketeers were generally quite extrovert. Not everybody, but I would say I'm pretty extrovert,
Mm,
pretty happy to talk, pretty happy to lead. And a lot of coaching lessons that we learned in the early days was taking a step back, reflecting,
mm,
being quiet, being silent. And that was very counterintuitive to my natural leadership behaviors. So at the beginning, it was, oh, wow, this is really interesting. And when I saw the examples of the coaching, I was like, oh my God, that blows my mind. So it really provoked me in a good way. It was a great provocation, but also it was difficult at the beginning. It was difficult to sit in the silence. It was difficult
mm.
not to pipe up all the time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so I love that. Difficult. I mean, that's so true. I love that. Right, that kind of like that almost to begin with. I remember when I started coaching, that sense of being sat on your hands, having to sit on your hands,
Yes, yes.
and that feeling very restrictive and like, oh, this is so hard. And but gradually, the more you practice, that it doesn't. Well, for me, I find I don't feel like I'm sat on my hands anymore. It feels more natural. But to begin with, that real sense of restriction, right? Don't say that. Don't do this. Don't
And
no.
interrupting, I kept interrupting, and it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because then you realize, oh my God, just how much and I just did it then, so just how much we do it in the marketing space because everyone's so excited, animated. I've got the ideas. I want to show, oh God, that sparked this idea and I'm bouncing off you. But are we actually listening to each other?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a whole episode. We're actually listening to each other, because I think you're right. I think in the corporate world there is often, and the intention isn't always a bad intention, right? It's
No.
not malicious in any way, but I think there is always that sense of needing to get your voice heard,
Yeah.
right? And because you've got a good idea, or you're excited, or that suggesting ideas gets rewarded, so you want to be the one who gets in there with those ideas, and then suddenly there's this whole other world where we say, well, You just need to sit and, in silence, don't
Mm.
interrupt. It's very, very different. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the time factor, because in marketing, you want to show that you're doing your job. You want to show you're on top of it. You've got ideas, you're on strategy, and time is limited. Time is of the essence because time is money, and everybody's vying for that airtime. And you're all good, working on big brands. Everybody's good. That's why they're there. So it's a good, positive rivalry, if you like, for want of a better word. It's good intent, well, very well and good intended, but you're all kind of crashing in for airtime.
Yeah.
So taking that step back, it's quite scary at the beginning. I felt so uncomfortable with the silences. And then the more we learned about time to think, I was like, oh my God, I'm not sure if I can do this.
Yeah, I think that because time's an interesting one actually, because I think that one of the challenges that I had initially because I started as an internal coach is that most of the clients I was working with internally were, heads of kind of director level, board members and so on, and they they don't have a lot of time, right? So I had this real pressure of, well, I've got them for an hour. Do you know how rare that is to
Yes.
have them for a whole hour? I better make it worth their while.
Oh God, yeah, that old hairy chestnut.
Yeah, definitely. That need to add value, and am I doing enough, and should I be doing more? And yeah, all of those things,
Yeah,
definitely.
all that performative stuff that came up for me on the Henley course, and especially doing the first assignments. Am I good enough? Am I bringing value? Am I driving, insight, aha moments in each session? And it doesn't work like that. And it actually takes a bit of time for that penny to drop. And it wasn't really until I started really working towards my ICF accreditation
Hmm.
and really studying and looking at the competencies, doing all the hours, that suddenly I think that's when I grew into the coach that I am starting to be today. And I say starting to be today because it's still an evolution and a journey.
Boy.
But now the silence, I'm very comfortable with the silences. I encourage the silence. I don't shy away from it. I don't feel the performative need. I partner much more with humility. My ego is a bit more parked to the side. My big marketing ego is parked to the side, and I didn't really have I had a bit of an ego, not a huge
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
but you have to have in the industry. Um, but that's part to the side, and I think that's where I'm starting to see the courage. It comes in the experience. It comes in letting go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Yeah, it comes in the letting go. I love that, Feb. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about what courageous coaching kind of looks like for you right now.
Well, it's interesting because I've just gone through a period of refocusing my positioning, and I've seemed to attract a lot of high performing leaders. And
Hmm.
with the high performance leaders comes a whole raft of things to explore. I don't want to say challenges because they're positives and superpowers as well as
Mm,
challenges sometimes.
yeah.
And with that is coming real courage, because I'm also noticing a lot of stuff about myself that, I'm in this same group, the things that I have done in my career, things I could have done better, things that I need to work on moving forwards. So not only am I growing in courage with regards to my own ambition and self-development, but it's a real privilege to support these fantastic leaders.
Mm, mm. And I'm curious, because you said I seem to attract a lot of high performing leaders,
Mm.
and that I seem to. It's kind of like that suggests to me that it's not necessarily deliberate. So what's that about? Do you think?
I think I'm quite academic, and I'm quite driven, and I think the insights, credibility that I've had over the years in the industry, I've demonstrated certain capabilities, and I think that's been attractive to a lot of the individuals that supported me in preparing for ICF,
Hmm.
that they are at possibly younger stages of their trajectory, but of the same ilk. Long life learners, ambitious, also entrepreneurs. a whole mix of skills. So I didn't set out with that in mind. I set out to empower leaders. I didn't have this thing about, high performers, and that's just kind of evolved. But I think the more I developed that courage to let go, slow down, step back, actively listen, the more they were able to go deeper and explore their own topics in a way which was meaningful to them. And we had some terrific aha moments where they realized, what they needed to do to be really fulfilled in their careers and lives.
That's really interesting, because what struck me then, as I was thinking that there's something about we tend to we can quite often select to work, not just coaches, but we quite often select people to work with who are like us, right? That sense of connection is kind of there. And so I imagine that some of these leaders may well be, I don't know, looking at your profile or website or however they're finding you, right? And there's that your background, your history, clearly, a high performer yourself, working in global organizations. There's lots of stuff in there, right? That I'm sure that they're looking at and going, oh,
that's interesting. It's inspiring. Yeah,
she gets me, or she gets the world I work in, and clearly she's, a lot of energy and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And then they come and meet you, right? And you have all of that history, and it's all true, right?
Yeah.
They come and meet you, and they meet this person who has now learned to slow down and create space and create use silence and not interrupt, all those things we talked about. And I wonder, and maybe neither of us probably know the answer to this, we can guess maybe. I'm really interested in your thoughts, because I wonder what they think, that because there's a real role modeling opportunity for you there, isn't there?
Well, it's multifold. I think they're attracted because of what I have achieved in my trajectory. It's interesting and inspirational for them on their path. Although, the insights and marketing industry is very impacted by AI and evolving all the time. It's incredible how it's shaping up. So there is that. But when they meet me as a coach, they trust me that I understand their issues, their work challenges, because I've been there. I know those environments. But they're also intrigued, I think, by, where is this going? And then I set it up in a way that, I know your field of work, I'm in it myself, but we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on you. We're not here to give advice. We're not here to fix things. And they're kind of, so what are we here to do? Yeah. But that's when the magic happens, because suddenly the space that you hold for them, as you well know, and the positive regard, irrespective of what they're going through, just unlocks that wonderful magic. And it's a privilege. It's a true privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I quite often use the word privilege. I also use the word joy. It brings me a lot of joy.
Me too.
To see those, that people, it's almost like watching people unfold, right?
It is, layer by layer.
Yeah, it is a real joy, definitely. And as you say, a privilege. And I think the other thing I'm conscious of is that, as you said, like when we train to be coaches, we learn to be coaches, and we grapple with all of those things around silence and not giving advice and all of those things you mentioned. I know for me as a coach, none of that has really gone away. So there are still some, not as much as there used to be, but there are still those occasions where I kind of think, I think I know what the answer is, or if they'd just be quiet for a minute, I could tell them. Like there's just those moments of, or I lean forward because I'm going to interrupt, and I break the flow, and there's just those little moments, and I just think, how do you manage? Because I have various management techniques, I guess, for myself in those moments. But I'm wondering for you, how has that developed in your practice, your ability to regulate, I guess, and manage those moments when they happen?
Well, aside from all the coaching theory from Henley and all the frameworks and learning that we do on the MSc, and I'm only partway through the MSc,
Mm,
I also am very interested on a personal level in nervous system, polyvagal theory, and
right.
also trauma. So I've done quite a lot of attendance of seminars which are trauma informed. And I'd say, the learning that I've done over the years, I'm pretty trauma informed, although I'm not a therapist or a counselor or have any clinician academia. And I think that, coupled with the learning from Henley, has really opened up from the heart. And this sounds a bit woo woo now, but it's opened up from the heart. And I'm aware that the power of the holding space that helps the co regulation of the other individual. And
Mm,
that's when they can go deep. So I've learned to really trust in that silence and in that support, and
mm,
just watching and noticing how they're breathing, how they're reacting. I can sense, they're a bit agitated. The nervous system's in one of the states that's a bit more energetic. Calm them down.
mm.
Use techniques to bring in that quiet, that peace, because then they can think better. Coupled with the neuroscience that we learn, get their cognitive part of their brain functioning so they can reflect. So putting all those bits together, I'm able to manage my desire for a fast and expedient outcome. But it's work in progress. It takes years to develop these skills.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I still find myself tripping on myself. If you know what I mean, like
Yeah, and
tripping
so
myself
do
up
I.
almost, right? I think it's a very human thing to
Oh
do.
yeah,
And so I'm always curious about how do coaches, different coaches, how do they manage that in the moment? And of course, all of those things that you talked about, creating space and helping your client to slow down and create
yeah.
space for thinking, that is also impacting on your ability to stay calm and in the space and hold it, right? So
Mm.
it's a part, well, you said earlier on, right, about it being a partnership.
It's a
And
partnership, a dance, as Claire
mm,
Pedrick always talks about it. But also, you have to be compassionate with yourself. We do get it wrong sometimes. We might not be as well regulated as we need to be in that instance. So we might
mm,
interject when we shouldn't, or we might project. And I think the thing is, if that happens, catch
yeah,
yourself, forgive yourself, and move on, because the brain works at a pace that we can't control everything. So if we're in a heightened nervous state, we're going to be doing some of those things automatically, autonomically. We're not in control. So just to catch it and be aware and calm down so your prefrontal cortex comes back online.
absolutely. It's that staying curious piece, isn't it? Oh, that's curious that happened. Okay, I'll
I
tuck that
wonder
away.
why, and afterwards, when you reflect, what was it? What's come up? What's come up from the past for me that made me react in that way?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Wow, this is fascinating. We're going deep.
I know. Well, I was because I think this kind of ability to regulate in the moment is such a,
Oh,
you
it's
know,
a mastery.
yeah, exactly. It's not even just a skill. It is a real mastery, and it can be affected by so many things. Like I didn't sleep well last night. I'm
Mm,
struggling to regulate today. Sometimes it's in the moment stuff, and sometimes it's very deep rooted stuff. It's
yeah.
it's,
And
it's
also for females, it can be our hormones, some
mm,
hormone imbalance,
yeah.
something we've eaten, something in the gut can affect it as well. And also, we have different levels of energy. I mean, whenever I do a podcast, I get slightly nervous. I can hear it in my voice. So I'm trying
Mm,
to regulate that now.
yeah.
But that's what gives me the adrenaline to think. So
Yeah.
it's understanding as well that sometimes if you've got a higher sense of adrenaline, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's energizing you.
Mm,
It's like you say, I love that expression, just get curious.
yeah. Totally. Totally. And I think the thing for me, and it's something I kind of, it's not a, I was going to say it was a mantra. I'm not quite sure that's quite right, but it's something that I kind of hold and remind myself of before I start a session, because I know that for me, my biggest hurdle when I first started coaching was overcoming the need to help, the need to give advice,
Mm,
the need to fix, right? Because that's what I'd done my whole career up until that point. So it
yes.
was a really hard thing to unlearn, right?
What was your career, Melissa?
So I was in learning and development before
Ah,
I became a coach, and in certainly in my last employed job, I was with the same company for 10 years, and you were rewarded for the problem, the solution to the
problem
problem.
solving.
You were rewarded for the answer, not the question. All of that
Mm,
stuff, which wasn't necessarily wrong, but it created something in me that I then had to really work hard to unlearn as a coach. Um,
mm.
and I think the turning point for me, I mean, breathing. I'm just like, remember to breathe, because I'm not. I'm a holder of my breath.
Yes.
I'll stop breathing. I'm like, oh, no wonder I'm struggling. So breathe.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that really I try and remind myself every kind of before every session, particularly with a new client, is that the minute that you give advice, or you tell someone what to do, you try to fix them. What ultimately I believe I'm saying when I do that is, I don't think you're good enough to get there on your own. So
Mm,
I'm going to tell you how to do it.
mm,
And it's quite a harsh thing. And that's why I've centered in on it, because I don't like that. But
mm,
I believe in the endless potential of people. I
mm.
always have. I'm endlessly curious about what they can become. And so to counteract that, I'm kind of like, yeah, but if you tell them what to do, you're basically saying you're not good enough to get there. I'm like, oh
That they
no,
don't have the self-agency. That's
absolutely.
that's so interesting because for me growing up, I had two parents who were from Italy.
Hmm.
So my mum wasn't as adept when I was early on in my childhood with the English language. It obviously got better as I got older, but from
Yeah.
being quite a young child, I was a bit of a fixer because I had to support and help her. My dad was at work all day, so I would already be doing thinking around adult solving that I shouldn't really have had to have been doing as a child, but it served me well because it made me bright, it made me switched on, it made me a problem solver. But it was also a point. There was also a point in my adult life where it became maladaptive.
Mm.
But I worked on that and figured out, well, this is where it's come from. We don't need to be like that anymore.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
you can let it go then. But I think recognizing where it comes from, but also recognizing that in some situations it's been I mean, that was your superpower in your career.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It was motivating. I was
Yeah.
rewarded for it. I
You were
recognized.
successful.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that we have to, certainly for me, it was so important for me to recognize, this stuff is hard to let go of. It's not easy. So as you
Yeah.
were saying, be kind to yourself,
Be
right?
kind to yourself, understand. And I think that's where understanding trauma and understanding self compassion, you can go back and look at these things and say, well, when I was 8 or 7, I shouldn't have been having to guide mum on how to read bills and things like that. I shouldn't have had to be worried about things like that. I should play. I should have just been playing. So
Mm.
inject a bit more play into your life.
Yeah.
And what I've done, there was a period where when friends would come and talk about things, I purposely said, don't let me give you advice. Don't, if I start telling you how to fix things, tell me off. Because it was just so instinctive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. A real, like, that's the classic learned behavior, isn't it? We've become very skilled at it, and it feels natural to us. But actually it's something that we've learned to do, or learned to be good at.
And I love what you're saying about the innate capacity of human beings, the wisdom we have in our brains and body to self-right or self-correct, auto-correct. And it's so wonderful when individuals are guided and they go, I know what I need to do. It's just come to me, that flash of inspiration. It's wonderful to see.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
but we can help courageously get them there without doing all the work.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And I mean, you mentioned Claire Pedrick just a moment ago, and her talking about the dance of coaching and so on, and we actually met. Well, we'd already connected, but we met on a session, didn't we? That Claire was
Mm.
running.
It was a masterclass, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, and it was something that came up there, which I know we sort of thought we might talk about, but actually it has come in because I'm thinking about coming back. I'm sort of going backwards a little bit, Feb, if that's okay.
That's
'Cause
perfectly fine. Yeah.
I'm thinking a little bit about this whole idea of being, executive leadership coach with your background, lots of experience, very successful, high performer, blah, blah. And then you kind of got these executive leaders that you're working with. And one of the things that we spoke about in that masterclass was around power, really, and how power shows up in coaching. And I kind of wonder from your experience, where you've come from, where you are now, and the kind of clients that you're working with, what do you think about
This
power?
is interesting, and it's still very much a work in progress, because in the roles I have within marketing, I'm partnering and supporting or co-piloting some of these leaders on big strategic initiatives. And sometimes you might have a conflict, a positive conflict, but a conflict of how you're interpreting the information, the data.
Yeah.
So you need to have a bit of power, and you need to have a bit of power up to debate. So you need that. But in a coaching situation, you don't want to appear as the person who knows it all, who has all the answers. So the depowering was very difficult for me initially, because I wanted to show that, I was up to the job. I could help coach them. I knew what they were going through. And then it was getting me into situations where I was coaching okay, but I recognized the coaching could be better if I just let go of that power struggle. You have nothing to prove. You're there just to provide positive regard, hold a space, and guide the conversation. But where the power comes in is the incisive questioning that we do, and how we use the frameworks moment to moment. So when I recognized I didn't need to take that marketing power into the coaching session, some of it was implicit because they know you, they know what you've achieved. But that letting go, when I managed to do it, it was a revelation.
Yeah.
And I purposely dressed down in coaching. Some coaches are very smartly dressed. I purposely dressed down because it depowers automatically.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, there's so much, isn't there, about what we transmit, knowingly and unknowingly, and externally what we're transmitting, but of course our bodies are transmitting too, for sure. And I think that power thing is an interesting, because many of us are aware of, I don't know, I kind of want to say like the more obvious types of power, where dress is a good example. Maybe there's the organisation has uniforms. There's all
Yes.
sorts of dress that can lead into
Yeah.
power.
Casual dress and so on.
Absolutely. And then of course there's the classic kind of job title, status, those kind of role power. But I think there's so many different forms of power, because and we're not always aware of them, and so we either use them without knowing, or we don't almost don't associate with them. Because it's interesting to me there that you described, some of the things that we do, like incisive questioning. There's an element of power in that.
But it's ethical power. That's the difference,
Yeah.
And I like to think I come into coaching with gravitas. Like, I explain how we're going to set up the process, that I'm not going to give advice, that I'm not there to fix, that we're there to work together in partnership. So that is depowering, and it's setting the stage for an equal partnership. But at some point, they do look at you, and sometimes they will say, "What do you think?" and invite you to give some thoughts. And I'll kind of say, "I'll tell you what I think at the end, but for now, what would you like me to think?"
Yeah, lovely.
Sort of bounce it back.
Yeah.
But the more you relinquish that power, the deeper the work that the individual does. But I do like to think gravitas is important, because they're paying you for a service.
Yeah.
You want to add value, whether that's explicit or implicit, and that's okay. It makes us do a good job, but it shouldn't be the foundation of that power relationship. It should be gravitas, that you know what you're doing, but you're not there looking down on the coachee.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So so Brene Brown talks about power, and she says, obviously there are different ways of using power. So there's this kind of power over, which is
Yeah.
the way we really don't want to be using power. But there's also power with, power to, and power within. And I think
Mm.
that's a really interesting concept, because that kind of, giving power to, so empowering,
Empowering,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly, your client. But there's also power with, so the relationship, and
That
how do
empathy
we,
as well.
yeah, how do we exchange and work and use our power together? And then there's also recognizing the power you have within yourself, both for the client recognizing that, but also you as the coachee, as the coach,
Mm.
sorry, right? I have power within me. I have power to hold space, and to listen, and to, so there's it's so interesting, I think, that we often associate power with, inequality, and not being a good thing. But actually, there are ways. I think there are ways that we can use power effectively. And I love this
Mm.
idea. It came out in that masterclass, didn't it? Of depowering,
Yes, to repower.
repowering. Yeah, absolutely. And
To,
it actually being a continuum, maybe, or a swing. I'm thinking of a sort of swinging pendulum, maybe.
and maybe you even need to contract about it, because if you're going to coach a CEO, maybe they expect a certain amount of power up.
Mm,
However, because of the depth of insight and knowledge we have on psychology, the thing that really is important to me is to use power ethically, because we've all heard stories of how it's used unethically, and it can do a lot of damage, mind games and so on and so forth, codependency. We don't want any of that in our coaching.
no, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, sadly, misuse of power, we see that a lot in the world. But
Mm.
sadly, we do see some misuse of power in the coaching profession as well. And like you say, it's not ethical. It's not
No,
a practice.
it's,
And
it's in nobody's favor.
no, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so Feb, I'm really curious now, because you kind of you shared at the beginning, your background. You kind of Henley, 2.5 years in, really kind of developing and becoming
Becoming,
a
yeah.
coach, right? So what's your call to courage now as a coach? What are you leaning into in the future?
Well, I've continued to do my self development quite rigorously, and it's given me a lot of pleasure. And I think, I'm not sure, did you attend the ICF course on transitions that they did
No,
recently? They did a wonderful
they did a whole
series.
series, didn't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was about 8 different sessions
Mm,
with some big famous coaching names, and it was really inspiring. So that kind of set me up well at the start of the year.
mm.
I've just had the courage to reposition my coaching. I always said I wasn't going to niche,
Right.
but then I found myself, working with high performers, and giving me a bit more clarity around where I can best bring value and service to leadership.
Hmm.
So that's been quite exciting. And I don't really know what the next part of this year is going to bring. I hope just a bit more revelation and a bit more stepping into this positioning and bringing it to life.
Yeah. Yeah, or the to niche or not to niche.
To niche or not to niche. I mean,
Yeah,
it's all an evolution,
yeah,
but I'm mesmerized by these people who claim to have it all nailed in 6 weeks, and posts that I read where, all kudos to them, but it's taken me, yeah, 2.5 years to even get to a point where I feel comfortable with it. I had a loose positioning before,
yeah.
which was more generic, and I was focusing more on the marketing industry. But now I've branched out to, corporate leaders from any sector, because I don't think I need to limit the sector. But it's taken me 2.5 years to grow the confidence courageously to think, yeah, this is where I'm going. And then at some point we'll branch into the group and corporate coaching. But at the moment, I'm still enjoying the learning from coaching one to one.
Mm. Yeah. And it is a two-way learning, isn't it? Every new client I learn something new from, right? Or they bring something that I haven't experienced before. I don't
Mm,
No one client is the same, no one session is the same. That's part of the joy of it. And I think that I'm the same as you, Feb. I resisted niching, then I niched and decided after a little while I didn't really like that niche. That wasn't the right niche for me. And for me, it's been a journey towards, because of the why I left employment, and set my,
mm,
it was about doing more of the work that I love and less of the work that I don't. And so
yes,
kind of actually my niche is about what brings me joy, and that's the work I want to do, and these are the people I want to work with. But you're right, it took me several years. I mean,
yeah,
it
it's
wasn't
it's a
an
journey.
thing.
No, and I offer coaching in different languages because of my degree in languages. And with that will come different learnings because, different cultures work in different ways. So all these topics we've studied at Henley and, looked at with Claire Pedrick,
Yeah.
how does the power differential play out with a French coachee or with an Italian CEO?
Wow.
Very different ball games. So
Yeah.
that learning, if we're open and courageous, it continues. There's so much to evolve and develop from. Quite excited about all of that. I mean, at some point I will move into more coaching and less marketing, but at the moment I'm still feet in both camps.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I'm setting up the coaching definitely for, a time in the future when I can enjoy it more full time. But that time is not quite here yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I definitely recognize that. Um, yeah, I have a portfolio business for sure. There's coaching is a big chunk of it, but it's a portfolio business definitely. And I kept a foot in employment for a while, and the whole
Yes.
foot, and I've done all of that. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you're still enjoying what you're doing from your original career. Also, I do a lot of mentoring in my spare time as a volunteer for the universities and also the EMCC. So there's lots of things that I'm interested in developing. It's exciting time. I didn't think that in my 50s I'd be so energized.
Oh,
I thought
absolutely.
I'd be slowing down.
Well, yeah, this is this midlife or second stage life, isn't it? That everyone seems to be
Crazy.
talking
And
about.
I remember my niece saying you should go back to university, and I was like, you're crazy.
And here you are
Here I
doing
am.
a masters. Oh, brilliant, brilliant. And okay, so let's draw this to a close, Feb. So the question I'd love to ask you, I ask nearly all of my guests, is what's the one thing that you think every coach should know about courage?
To be truly courageous, you need to fight your own fears.
Mm,
So you need to know yourself, you need to know your strengths, but you need to know your limits and weaknesses and why you're not going there and what's holding you back. Because how can we encourage change and empowerment in others if we can't do it within ourselves first?
mm. Yeah, I mean I love that. The whole kind of knowing yourself, and knowing yourself, all of yourself. The bits you like.
The good and the bits you don't like so much too.
Absolutely, absolutely. It does take courage to do the inner work. The self work, well, whatever label we want to give it, self awareness, whatever. But I think for coaches, it's an integral, it's critical, right? It's a critical part of the work for sure. But it needs, as you quite rightly say, it requires courage, doesn't it? So
And also studying, topics around psychology, looking at compassionate coaching, looking at trauma, looking at,
mm,
some of these frameworks that come from the therapeutic context. You're not applying them, we're not therapists, but they're very helpful in understanding the human condition. And at the end of the day, we're just another human being talking to another human being. And I know Claire says this a lot, so I have to give her credit here. But it's just a conversation between two human beings, and where there's great respect and the wanting them to do things well and succeed, it's so powerful because some people have never had that validation in real life.
absolutely, absolutely. Someone who's going to sit and listen, really, truly listen to what you're saying, and and show you empathy and ask you questions. I mean, that doesn't happen that often, in our everyday lives, and certainly for in your coaching space, right, in the leadership space, they
There's
just
no time for those
don't exist.
conversations.
Yeah, it doesn't exist, and so coaching is so powerful. So many of my clients will say to me, the most, the most important thing, the most powerful thing for them about, going through a coaching program is that they get 90 minutes once a month or how
Mm.
often they are, right? That's just about them, where they can slow down, where they can talk as much or as little as they want to. This whole and the freedom, the sense of freedom, the freeingness of it, if you like, that gives them, because they don't get it anywhere else.
A few of my neighbours know that I'm a coach, and yesterday I was sat outside and one came up for a conversation. I won't go into the details, but they shared something quite deep. And I just said, I have no words. I have no words, but I do feel what you went through, and I do hear you, and I see you, and I'm here for you. And it was an emotional moment for that person, because that's all they needed to hear, that somebody was there for them.
Yeah.
And it's just the power of connection when two human beings come together, when it's nervous system plus nervous system, and that co-regulation and that support. It is truly magical.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the joy for me. That's why I coach, for sure, for that connection. Yeah, lovely. Feb, it's been such a pleasure to
It's
have
been a
you
joy. I could go on all day.
I'm always really conscious when I'm recording these, because I just get into conversation mode. And
It's been lovely.
Talk all day. But it's been really lovely, and thank you for sharing so much of your journey and where you're at in your journey, because I know it will resonate with a lot of people who are listening to the podcast. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being here. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation, and it's been lovely to hear of your experiences and your thoughts following that shared course that we did. Thank you, Melissa, and wishing you all the best with your podcast and business.
Thank you. And you too, Feb. Take good care. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Coach podcast. I hope it gave you something to reflect on, something to feel, and maybe even something to act on. If you've been nodding along or feeling that tug of recognition, you're not alone. These conversations are here to remind us that courage isn't about having it all figured out. It's about showing up, doing the inner work, and being willing to be seen, even when it feels uncomfortable. If that sounds like the kind of coaching journey you want to go deeper into, I'd love to invite you to check out the Courageous Coach program. It's designed especially for qualified coaches in the early years of building their independent practice. Those who want to coach with more courage, clarity, and humanity, and grow a business that truly reflects who they are. You'll find all the details over on my website, and I've popped the link in the show notes to make it easy for you. And if we're not already connected, come and find me on LinkedIn. Whether you've got questions about the program, want to share what's resonated for you in this episode, or you just fancy a chat. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you know another coach who might need a little courage boost, pass it on. Courage is contagious, after all. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, stay curious, stay human, and keep choosing courage.